Hi, this is Hannah on the Montessori microphone, the Montessori Makers podcast. This week, we are going to talk about bridging the gap. There are a lot of ways we can think about bridging the gap, but this comes from a place where there seems to be a gap between all of the things that we learn and know and do well from training and the things that it takes to be successful within a Montessori school. Now, we can all have some ideas around what it means to be in a Montessori school, and most of our work is around serving children. That's the whole point that we're there, right? And a school is so much bigger than each individual relationship that we have with children, and so much bigger than each individual classroom that a guide leads. And there are a lot of people and there are a lot of things happening, and there's a lot that goes into play to make sure that everything is functioning well. Because in the end, what we really want is a robust, full experience for children. We want children to be successful, to be happy, to have a wonderful experience. We want their families to be happy as well. And in order to create that space, we really need to be thinking beyond all of the things that we learned in training. We need to be thinking at about 10,000 feet, 30,000 feet, depending upon your role, and all of the pieces that go together in creating these great spaces. Now, why do I have anything to say about this? Well, I run Montessori Makers Group, where we focus on supporting adults so that they can get back to what they do best, which is serving children. And one of the ways that we do that is through our tagline, making Montessori modern. And what does that mean? So making Montessori modern is really an idea around the ways that society has changed, the way that organizations and businesses have changed, the way that systems have changed, so that we can meet the needs of a modern society while we are still fully offering an authentic, robust, high fidelity Montessori experience for children. In my experience is that I've been in this field for over 20 years, always been in Montessori since I started working. I was trained as a primary guide. I served in that role for many years before moving on to a coordinator, a coach, a consultant. I was a director of curriculum and instruction. I was a head of school. I have built programs from the ground up, like finding building space, ordering materials, hiring full staffs. I have trained folks. I have consulted with people across the country, and I see and have seen a lot of the same things come up over the years from the time that I was in the classroom until the time that I'm in now, working with other schools and other people. And it really doesn't matter if the school is an independent school or a public school. Some of the challenges that we have remain the same. And so I want to talk this week about bridging the gap between what we have and what we learn in training to be strong Montessori guides serving children and the philosophy, and what it takes to have a really strong institution or school so that those children can continue to thrive. And so I think about bridging the gap in a couple of different ways. There is bridging the gap for the individual guide, the things that they are doing within the space with the children, and also bridging the gap for organizations, the ways that they can create systems and structures that really support strong organization, strong community. First, we'll take the path of the guide themselves. Now, there are guides at all different levels who've gone to many different trainings. And when I think about the skills that guides have, assistants as well, there are a set of skills that we have that we get from training that are really robust, that really help us to serve each individual child and meet their needs. There are also a set of skills that we need that aren't necessarily taught in training that we have to suss out over our experience in years. But here at Montessori Makers, we don't think that it has to take so many years and so much experience to gain those skills. We want people to be successful from the start. So, when you think about running a classroom or even a school, but right now we're focused on the classroom, we might think of it kind of like the way a restaurant works, right? If you've worked in a restaurant, you know that there is a front of the house and there is a back of the house. And the front of the house is the place where the customers sit, it's where they get their food, it's where you see all the beautiful decor and all the happenings and interactions between the staff and the people who are there to eat a good meal. And then there's the back of the house, which is like the kitchen staff. It's those working in the office. It's the management that is happening. It's where we think about the people who know how to make the sausage, right? So within the Montessori classroom, there's also front of the house skills and back of the house skills. We gain our front of the house skills from training. Those things are learning about the philosophy. We understand what freedom and discipline mean. We understand how to foster a sense of independence in children. We know what it means to honor the child. And that helps us create a space that is loving and kind and honorable and in service of children. We learn the importance of the prepared environment. So our shelves look beautiful. The materials are set up in a way that is easy to discern what comes first, what comes later. Things are color coded and child sized. We know all of the lessons like the back of our hands. We can walk to a shelf, pull a material off, and engage with a child and show them how to use that material so that they can then be off and running and working and engaging with it themselves and ready to gain skills and competencies as they move through their journey in the scope and sequence of the curriculum. What we don't necessarily always learn in training are some of the other skills that we need to really be successful. And so, what I mean are, there are other parts to working in a school and being in a space with families that we need to know how to do well so that we are communicating and working with the folks around the child in order to uplift their experience. So, some of those things might be learning about neurodiversity. We often have children in our spaces who have things like ADHD, autism, children with dysgraphia or dyslexia, children who are learning to speak when they come to meet us for the first time. We have children who have physical disabilities. And it's really important for us to understand how to serve all of those children. Now, Montessori has been the same for decades, right? We know what lessons to give, we know how to serve and support children, and many of these children have probably been within these environments for years. What is different is that there are more diagnoses these days. We have a better understanding of how these things impact the experience and lives of children. And so the closer that we are to fully understanding what these things are, how they work, and best practices for serving children, the better we can serve children within our environments. Also, society is different. The way that adults outside of the space interact with children is different than it was when Montessori first began. It's different in the last 20 years. So, understanding ways to respond to behavior that aligns with our practice, that really supports children in growing and learning from the social challenges that they have, will really help them to flourish and thrive. Further, having a great sense of organization of records and understanding how to communicate well with others is really, really a big piece of this. So, for example, imagine you have a child who is having some challenges engaging, learning, interacting with others. Best practice really is to do some interventions, think about all the pieces that might be affecting the child, taking good data on the interventions that you are trying within your classroom, and being able to share that information with others. Those that might be evaluating the child, those that might be further working with the child, certainly their family, school administrators, but having a great sense of how to do those things and how to communicate them well in a way that is impartial, non-judgmental, and factual really helps to serve the child in a way that brings all of us together to wrap our arms around that child. Literacy is another huge piece. If you have gone to training, you likely know that In primary, we have a strong scope and sequence of lessons that allow us to show children the skills that they need in order to be strong readers, these strong foundational skills. And if you've been in elementary training, some of those things aren't necessarily offered with the same robust, in the same robust way. So we have primary guides who have a number of skills in order to support children's reading, and elementary guides who maybe don't have those same set of skills. And yet, many children who are in the elementary environment don't yet have strong foundational reading skills. We are just, as a community, starting to better understand the science of reading and how it works and how that relates to our work. But we think it's really important to understand what the general consensus is around reading, the things that children need in order to be successful, both so that we know we are doing the right things with children in our environments, but more so that children are really getting all of these foundational skills that they need so that they can access their environment and that it can lead towards liberation. The liberated child is a child who can discern between different types of information, who can use the information that they read and see and hear to make decisions on their own and be productive members of society. And so having those skills is a really big part of that. Further, understanding social responsibility for belonging, our responsibility for belonging for children within our environments, ensuring that our environments are representative, that we are utilizing practices that are culturally competent, that children feel safe and that they belong and loved, and families as well. And lastly, this idea of emotional intelligence for adults. So when we learn how to do this work well, we talk a lot about the spiritual preparation of the adult for work with children. And there's also a spiritual preparation of the adult for work with other adults within the space, because just as much as we need to be our best self for working with children, we need to foster an environment with other adults where we are working in tandem and in collaboration to serve children. So, and in order to do that, we need to know how to confront situations where we will be in conversation and in community with people who may have different values, who may have differing opinions, who might see situations differently than we do. And it's important for us to be able to work through those things, ultimately in service of children, but in the short term, in service of our own relationship to be able to serve children, so that we can do this all well. Now, here at Montessori Makers, we offer online courses, which we call modules. We also offer professional development, which we refer to as Montessori maturation, in order to help people know what all of these things are. Many of the things that I learned by doing the work, being in really challenging situations, having to fumble through situations where I didn't have information. And there are ways that we can offer this information to you now. It doesn't matter if you have just left training and you are brand new to the work, or whether you are a 20-year vet and you've been in this for a long time. In order to serve children properly, we need to know all of the things in order to best serve them. We need to know how to give lessons. We need to know the philosophy well. We need to understand our environment. We also need to know how to serve neurodiverse children. We need to know how to respond to behavior, to be organized and take good notes and understand data and how it informs our practice. We need to understand literacy and what it means to teach children how to read, even when they are older. I can't tell you the number of children that I have met in lower elementary or even upper elementary who don't have strong foundational reading skills yet. We need to understand how to be culturally competent and create spaces that are inviting for children and that children feel like they belong in. And we need to understand how to relate well to adults. So these parts are all parts that we cover in our professional development and in our modules. So please check them out. We would love to be able to support you so that you don't have to go through the same trials and tribulations of having these challenging experiences where you're feeling like you might not be able to serve children best, because you can. It just takes a little bit more information so that you are fully well-rounded and able to do so. Now, those are the things that are on the part of the guide or the person working directly with children. As a school also holds the responsibility to make sure that every staff and faculty member is fully prepared in order to do this work. And there are a number of ways that that can be done. It can be done through professional development, and you can offer pieces that will help support the growth of the adults over time. And one of the biggest parts can really come through one of your earliest interactions with new folks that come on board. When new folks come on board, we have an opportunity to help get them acclimated, to help get them connected, and fully understand all of the things that we're doing in our school in order to serve children and families. And so our onboarding process is one of the ways that organizations can fill the gap for people from what they know before they've come in to work with us and what they will need to know in order to thrive. And so there are a lot of things that can happen if we aren't onboarding fully. And I'd like to go through some of those things with you just to help you see and recognize the various ways that onboarding is such an important piece of the work. So if someone has come in and they've just kind of gotten to work and like maybe we felt like they were a good match, that they're Montessori trained, we're glad that they're here, they're ready to work with children, or they serve a different role in the school where they didn't need to be Montessori trained, but they're here to work with us, they like what we do here, and so we're going to work well together. Well, sometimes what we can have is people who are not as engaged, right? People come into the organization and they're there to do their job, but things aren't really feeling like people are part of a community. There are ways that we can solve for that when we're doing onboarding with folks. Sometimes we can see increased turnover and people will leave when they don't feel like their community is a space that is taking care of them, when it is a space that is honoring their needs and all of the things that need to happen for them within their work. Setting the stage early on for what is to be expected, what it is that we do expect, what are the things that we put in place in order to support folks can really help people know that this is the place for them and these are the ways that we support and the ways that we function within community. There can be a lack of role clarity. People aren't sure who is in charge of what, who makes decisions around what. And when people have lack of role clarity, that's when people get into a bit of a fuss around who should be making said decisions. And so that can be tackled early on. There can be a reduction in engagement from folks within the building. So people might not know, which pieces they should and should not show up for. Should everyone be going to the plays that we're holding with the elementary class? Should everybody be going to the picnic that we hold before the year starts when all the families show up? What are the ways in which we are letting people know early on that we invite them and expect them to engage with the community to help forward our mission and vision for the school? There can be a poor workplace cultural integration for people. Folks might not know that, for instance, your organization is one that recycles and does so heavily, and sustainability is a big part of what you do. And so somebody can feel like an outsider if they aren't ready to know, if they aren't ready to be a part of what the organization is doing regularly and what the organization values. But having those things in place and sharing that information early on through onboarding can really nip that in the bud. There can be increased error rates. In Montessori, we think a lot about control of error, right? The things that are built in to let us know if things are going well or not. In life, I would say that there are probably a fair amount of controls of error. And one of those things is feedback from families. That is a great control of error. But knowing early on what families expect and what has happened for them in their experience up till now can really help us define for new folks what the expectations are now so that people can feel successful in those relationships. People can suffer from lower satisfaction in their position and in their community. There can be missed opportunities for development. It might take longer than we really need for it to take for people to gain skills and understand what their role is going to need from them if we are missing a robust onboarding experience. There can be strain between peers or even supervisors. Imagine you have an organization or a school where assessment data needs to be understood by the faculty so that they can explain it to families and they can help to families to navigate what their children's experience looks like in comparison to what their experience might look like if they were in a traditional model and why ours is different. But if they don't have those skills and it's not understood and then shared and explained in the same way that you might expect, a peer might have to take that on, or a supervisor like a coach or an administrator might need to take that on. But sharing that information early through onboarding can really avoid some of those challenges that occur. You can have insufficient use of resources. Might have folks ordering everything under the sun through the wrong channels. And when it becomes audit time or your accounting office, might have some thoughts and feelings about that. But again, showing people early on what to do can avoid that. You can have situations where there's missed values alignment, right? And if we are offering people from day one the knowledge of the space that they are walking to, what is our mission? What is our vision? What are our shared values? What are our observable values? Those kind of things can avoid those challenges. And one of the most impactful pieces that can happen out of this is a negative impact on the family experience, right? We want families to feel good about their experience with children, with their children in our organization. We want families to share through word of mouth all of the joy that they are experiencing, all of the love that they feel, all of the excitement around the robust opportunities that their child has. But people who maybe don't know yet what it is that they need to be offering families can create a different experience for families. And so it protects our institution when we are onboarding folks well. And then finally, one of the most challenging pieces can be around compliance risks, right? Imagine you have some folks come in and they don't know what is important for your school to follow in terms of regulations. Maybe it is ratio, maybe it is time spent outside, maybe it is the types of tools or materials that you're using in certain spaces, and they make a mistake which can challenge the compliance of the school, which kind of makes us all look like we're in a little bit of hot water. So again, going back to the onboarding, really attacking those things at the front in terms of making sure that your onboarding is robust, making sure that it is clear, making sure that it is well planned out so people know all of the things that need to do, and investing the real time in onboarding people can make such a difference. At Montessori Makers, we do project management, and one of the things that we can do is take your onboarding process as it is now and make it more robust. We will do a deep dive with you to learn everything that is a part of your onboarding experience. We will navigate with you through your systems and structures, through your expectations to help create a more robust practice so that you can unveil that and roll it out with new folks who come to join you. Because at the end of the day, our goal really is to wrap our arms around adults so that they can, again, get back to what it is that they do best, which is to honor children and to support them as they are on their journey to thrive and grow into amazing adult humans. So please reach out to us if there's any way that we can help and support you. As always, you can find us on the web at www.montessorimakers.org. We have a YouTube We have a Substack. You can find us on Instagram at Montessori Makers Group. We have a Facebook, and we hope to see you around. Thanks for tuning in as usual, and we'll see you again soon. Have a great day.